Sounds good.
We're live.
Oh, I like that.
Hey, yeah. You know what?
What?
This is a brand new computer I just got in the mail. I've never ordered a computer online, and we got it delivered. And I was so eager to use it, so we started 10 minutes early. And
nice. Looks good.
Yeah. I think so. And plus we're doing this on YouTube Live. Usually we were doing this on Periscope, but Periscope is a little bit buggy, but this is that new MacBook Pro 16-inch, and it's supposed to have amazing audio. You tell me if the audio is any good, but the fact is we also ordered a new mic, which will go right here. The thing is, because of pandemic, everybody has the mic market, it's wiped out. There's no supply of mics. I wanted to get that Blue Yeti Pro. It's sold out. I've been waiting for 3 months.
All right.
And also had my name on a list for the Rode, one of the Rode mics, just as good, perhaps better than the Blue Yeti. And sold out. I've been waiting 4 months, and then finally I just gave up and I ordered an Apogee mic. So that is coming on Tuesday. So next weekend we will have the new mic. Just so you know, I know you're learning this too, along with the audience.
Exciting. This is exciting stuff. Yeah, I like to hear about that. Really nice.
Max,
really nice.
Max is this mysterious, Da Vinci man on the Sundays, the lockdown with the Keisers.
Really?
Should we start now? Yeah, it's a good 100. Everybody says the audio is good. Hi, Max. I think we're going to have a new rally. It's going to be crazy. Audio great. Sound is good. So this is just the mic there on the computer. And Apple does say, they claim that it's as good as a plug-in mic, just using the onboard audio.
Right.
So,
yeah. Oh, boy, that would be great.
But we'll see, because next week we'll actually have this Apogee mic. And in case you were just tuning in, this is what we're talking about. Our new mic setup.
Yeah.
Trying to get us all positioned here.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So are you going to vote for Kanye?
Why? Yeah, I suppose. Why not? I was thinking Anastasia would also be a good president. She's got that single, "I'm Out of Love." It's such a great single. And the way she moves around on stage, I'm thinking, yeah, let's vote for Anastasia for president.
The problem is she Canadian?
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't know.
There's a lot of, that's the problem with Canadians. They should get a kind of different accent. You kind of really have to listen hard to understand when they do the, oh yeah, or whatever.
That's not Canadian.
Oh, really? Well, anyway, it's hard to tell. They're imposters. They act, they're part of the British Empire. They should speak with a British accent. They have the Queen on their currency, and the Queen is their head of state sort of thing.
That's right. It's part of the Commonwealth.
Yeah. So why do they speak like Americans instead?
They don't. They speak with a distinct Canadian accent, eh?
Yeah, right. Well,
you don't be a hoser and be dissing the Canadians, the Canucks. They are the only real free people.
But Canucks, well, they are the only people who know how to play hockey. So what is your instinct about Kanye West? I saw people responding to RT when they were saying Kanye West is running for president, and some young ones, didn't know who he was.
Really?
So what do you think? Do you think he's being serious, or do you think he's just pushing, he has a new album out, just announced 2 days ago. So is he just promoting his album? What is he doing?
Well, there's LA, there's New York, there's Memphis, there's Nashville, and there's the White House, right? These are all huge venues for entertainers. And especially starting with Ronald Reagan, the White House became another venue for entertainment. And so much of film and TV is based on the White House as entertainment, from the West Wing to Independence Day. and it takes all the trappings when they put TV cameras in the House and the Senate, and so many politicians now play to the camera really more than anything else. So being an entertainer and being a successful guy, he just did a deal with Gap on a clothing deal, which looks big, highly successful. He's got Elon Musk behind him, so he can push this and see where it goes. I think it'll result in a lot of support. I think ultimately, if he gets the kind of support that he could get, and people are saying, this is really going to become a factor for 2020, then I think the Trump campaign subsumes the Kanye campaign, and we could see Kanye West as Secretary of State. He could be in the cabinet. He could be in Trump's cabinet, I think is the most likely outcome.
Definitely he's not genuinely running for president because it's too late to be on the ballot in several states, including North Carolina, where we live. So we wouldn't even have an option to vote for him. However, many people are very worried, especially for Biden, because of course, what Biden needs is especially Black men to come out and vote, because that is why Hillary lost in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. Was at the margin. What it was the Black guys didn't come out and vote for her. They had a reduction in their number of votes since the prior election in 2012 with Obama being reelected. So that's what they gauged on. That's the actual demographic that Joe Biden needs to show up at the polls. So people are concerned that this could lose enough Black male votes for Biden to lose.
Yeah, I mean, I think, this kind of has Donald Trump's fingerprints all over it. I think that he's kind of making behind the scenes moves, encouraging Kanye to run there. They had a great relationship. Kanye supported Trump, remember, in the very first days of his presidency. He got a lot of flack for that. And he's also hooked up with that evangelical preacher who has a huge mega church.
Josh Osteen or something.
Osteen. That's a huge demographic, and he played really well to that audience, and he's written music to that audience, and he's tapped into the American zeitgeist, which is the flim-flamming Bible thumper, right? So this is the American archetype that goes back hundreds of years. It's the theological scammer. The snake oil salesman from out in the plains, or Donald Trump, or P.T. Barnum, or even Barack Obama was a Bible thumping scammer. Very, very infrequently have we had anyone of political prominence in America who wasn't this kind of music man, coming into town to teach your kids how to be great and make America great again. I mean, so he's got that. He understands the demographics. He's got the evangelicals, he's got Black Lives Matter, he's got the millennials, he's got the Gen Zs, he's got baby boomers, he's got it all. He's got Elon Musk. He can push it really far. Kim Kardashian is very wealthy, and she's done some things in the White House that have been very successful, helping out groups and things like that. So I think this is very American. I think it'll do well.
So you're saying he's a huckster and he's pushing albums, because that's what it's going to come down to.
Right, I believe so. But so is Donald Trump a huckster? He's a property developer huckster. Barack Obama is kind of a huckster. Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton are definitely hucksters. Yeah. Ronald Reagan is a huckster. It's hard not to find a huckster. Richard Nixon was, kind of this very, kind of a huckster, really, in his own way. So, that's America. It's interesting that in America, they're tearing down all these monuments to people. And, it's interesting, like, America's having an identity crisis the way Great Britain has an identity crisis. In Great Britain, when we were living there, every month, the prime minister would come out and say, "Who are we? Let us define who we are." And everyone said, "No, I'm Scottish. No, I'm Welsh. No, I'm from London. No, I'm from Manchester. I'm a prince. No, I'm a laborer. I'm conservative." Right? So nobody really. I mean, if you engage with anyone from Britain on Twitter, they'll say, "I'm not British. I'm really Scottish," or "It's not Great Britain. It's really Britain. It's the United Kingdom. It's England." Right? They don't know. They have no idea who they are. So America's becoming the exact same way. People don't know who they are anymore, where they come from, what they stand for. They're like, I have no idea what our past is, what our past was, what our future is. I have no idea. So America is becoming like a post-empire confused state, right? That's what happens when empire collapses. The people just like wander the streets confused. Where am I? Who am I? What's going on? So this is now the state of America.
But it's broader. Like our groups are bigger. It might be like, red team versus blue team, red state versus blue state, maybe New England, East Coast versus West Coast. Whereas like in the UK, by my eyes, like when we go from say Manchester to Liverpool, it seems just like only 45 minutes, but there's like this extreme like tribal hatred between cities that are so close to each other. Their accents are like hugely different between each other, but we don't have anything remotely like that in the US, like that extreme sort of difference between accents on a very short distance. So I mean, it is amusing because to an outsider,
it's organically diffuse, but in America, it's artificially this way. That's why you have all these groups like groups that are demanding rights in America that up until 6 months ago, you didn't even knew there was a group. But suddenly there's a group and they're demanding equality and justice. And like 6 months ago, I never heard of this group. I never knew that even some of these things were possible in terms of the human beings and what their genitalia may or may not be able to do. And suddenly it's like, this is the right of us. And so they're creating all the divisions for the sake of creating divisions. So they want to be like, in the UK, at least it makes ancient sense because it goes back 1,000 years. And the reason that Sheffield hates Leeds and Leeds hates Sheffield is because some families go back hundreds of years and some guy threw a rock at somebody else, and you can understand that. But in the US, they have to create this artificiality of the divisiveness to have the same level of dysfunction. So dysfunctioning political entities are not natural to the US. They have to really work to create the dysfunction because it's not really as dysfunctional as Europe.
That's true. That's true. Especially out on the street. On Twitter, it's quite dysfunctional. But I'll read some of the stuff. First of all, it was Joel Austin.
Joel, yeah.
Joel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I guess we said Josh.
Joel.
Whoa, dude, like lots of comments. Nice glasses, Stacy. I like that. Been listening to Max since 2006. Well, if you've been listening to Max, you've been listening to Stacy because like basically I do everything with him.
Yeah, basically we are the same person. We're a group. We're declaring that we're an oppressed group, Max and Stacy, and we want our own political party. We want our own toilets. We want our own geography. We want to be out there. Max and Stacy, that's it. We're seceding from the world. It's our world. We're in our own world, and we want rights.
This is you're the president, okay?
I'm the president of my own world, and I want rights, and I want to deal with GAP.
You're the Kaiser, actually. Max, I guess lost the race for class president in high school, so he just declared himself king. And
that's not how the story goes. But I was king of the high school. That's true. You can find my videos on YouTube under King Keiser, Keiser, and you'll see videos from 1978 of me as king in high school.
Somebody named Simon33, you can't handle the truth 33, says Stacy is always beautiful.
True. That's true. That's true.
Could it lead to a hot civil war along ethnic or racial lines?
Are we heading toward a civil war? We are definitely raising the temperature in the U.S. And I think we're not going to have so much of a civil war as an old-fashioned insurrection.
Yeah. I don't feel like, to me, I mean, maybe you might assume I'm like a younger millennial.
That's what you told me. That's not true.
But the fact is, like, in what I observe is that there's less racism, less sexism, definitely less homophobia That's the like biggest decline in the US versus say in the 80s. I know I was only like 1 or 2, but based on what I observed, like that gay rights has come the farthest because under Reagan, remember, like it was just like people openly mocking gay people for getting AIDS, this new scary disease. It was like scarier than COVID-19 at the time. And it was, you know, this was the beginning of the whole the gay rights movement. I forget the name of the group.
ACT UP.
ACT UP. And
yeah, very well managed, very well politically managed.
Yes. So that's come like, I would say they've got like 95% acceptance. Like they've hugely successful. But compared to back then as well, like I think racism and sexism issues are much better. I mean, the problem is that we, especially since 1971, as we covered recently on the Kaiser report, is we have the Cantillon effect. So if you had power and wealth in 1971, when we started the pyramid scheme, you have even more. Like the way the Cantillon effect works is like those who had those assets, they got the most. So it's kind of embedded no matter what on the surface, like, you know, women and Black and Latino and, you know, other minority Americans can have all the jobs they want because the white Protestant guys, the WASPs, don't need to work because they just get printed money from the Fed and all their asset prices go up. So they could live on the dividends and capital gains for the next few generations. So it doesn't cost them anything.
Yeah, that's
to
true.
Share.
You know, I started on Wall Street in 1983, and it was really just my first job out of college. And it was just because I needed a job, and I happened to get a job on Wall Street working for a stockbroker.
You can't do that now.
Not like that. And I really loved it, you know. So I stuck with it, and I was on. But it was the beginning of this huge bull market. You know, the bond market's been on a 40-year bull market. So if you just happen to be stepped onto this an incredible bubble in 1983. I mean, if I had started off my post-college career job in some other job, it would have been very, very different.
Somebody says we need a show called In the Kitchen with Max Keiser.
Oh, heck yeah.
All keto. That's all Max cares about.
That's true. I've got all my kitchen, my baking game is up. My keto baking game is high.
Max just wants to bake keto cakes all day and show off his legs.
Right.
Like walks around.
What did I have last week? We made keto creme brulee with Earl Grey tea, which is very nice. Keto vanilla cake, keto chocolate cake, keto chocolate mousse, keto peanut butter mousse.
Ooh, that was good too.
Right? Keto peanut butter mousse. We made.
That's not just in 1 week. We've had that over like 2 or 3 weeks.
Had,
I don't want people to think like we just like sit here and eat all day.
A layer cake with cream cheese frosting, layer cake with buttercream frosting, right? They're very different. Decided I prefer the cream cheese frosting.
Yeah,
it
definitely.
Kind of sets up better on the cake. It's nice. The buttercream frosting is kind of a hassle to make, and it just uses so much butter. It's kind of a hassle, but I mean, it's okay. I go back and forth on these things.
Somebody says that I'm your guiding light.
You are.
Why with the pause?
Yeah. Well, because you're my Harbert, right? Because Stacey Harbert or Herbert is a shield for the Maxwell. It's the shield for the king.
No, shield for the Kaiser. This was interesting what we learned because both the Herberts and the Keisers ended. Okay. So Harbert is the origin of Herbert. It's a German name originally from the Germanic tribes, like before Germany, really. So, you know, those barbarians up there taunting the Roman Empire. Whereas Kaiser, Keiser, was the original spelling of, which is now Kaiser, Kaiser. That was like Austro Germanic tribes, the barbarians. And Kaiser comes from the King Players. So they, there used to be traveling theaters, much like this, like a live stream of its day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And those would be the barbarians that at the edge of empire. And only a certain, still to this day. So this was 1,000 years ago, over 1,000 years ago, 1,500, 1,700, 1,800 years ago, where the notion was that only certain people could play the king, and including Orson Welles talks about
Yeah, I was
this.
going to mention Orson Welles. Yeah.
Yeah. So Orson Welles, obviously, like who's that? Marlon Brando was a king player.
No, that's see, Orson Welles represented that very theatrical king player.
Laurence Olivier.
Yeah, Laurence Olivier, I guess, but whereas Marlon Brando really reinvented acting really for the screen, for film acting. Orson Welles was really a theater actor who was in film, and he was a great director, obviously, but he wasn't necessarily a film actor the way Marlon Brando was a film actor who kind of reinvented film acting. Yeah.
So, I mean, I think you kind of get it. There's only a certain sort of person that could carry off playing a king, even if they're not a king. You have to have a sort of sense of carrying yourself and a belief. Who was a great king player is Jonathan Rhys-Meyers. And when you watch the Tudors, it's unbelievable. He's a king player because it doesn't matter that he doesn't look like Henry VIII. He plays Henry VIII, and you believe totally that this guy is a king. And so that's a king player. That's a guy who could play a king. So that's where that name Kaiser came from, because they were playing the Caesar. So at the time, and so he was the family name Kaiser came from there. But then we found out after that Herbert comes from Harbard, and that means defends the king, protects the king with a shield. So I guess we were the sort that just went out there with a shield, no offensive weapons. We were the ones that went to the front line and got killed. You always see the scenes of the movies where the spear comes through the guy's head.
I remember in Game of Thrones, there was that knight, that woman, that blonde.
Yeah. That's like me.
Yeah, she was Nordic. She was protecting the queen, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, it was the Harbard name went over through France and then into England and Ireland and Scotland. But I do look like the Nordic side, more than the Harbard side. But those are totally unpronounceable names on that side. So.
Right. Yeah. So King Kaiser, came naturally to me as a teenager. It just came out.
Yeah, you're a king player for literally 2,000 years.
I had no idea, but it was just something that came naturally to me to have.
For 2,000 years, it's in his blood to fucking annoy the elite, the monarchs of the day.
It's true, and a lot of people say, "What's the secret to television?" And the secret actually is, if you notice, most people who do television, their heads are actually a little bit bigger. And
that's your argument.
I have a size 8 hat size, which is large, which is on the large side. And
that's
basically because the TV screen is limited real estate. So by having a bigger head, you take up more screen, and therefore people believe you more. It's just that's the way the psychology of television works.
That's why I'm sitting closer to the screen, so my head looks
up
as big as yours
to offset my natural gift of screen presence due to my large cranium. And propensity to play the king, to be the king. I had both the physical and the emotional attributes to be king.
The Queen of England doesn't have a very big head. Do you think so? I don't know. Maybe.
But that's why she needs a crown, right? To make the head look bigger. I don't need a crown. I have a little baseball cap, all right, but I don't need to stick a big crown on my head to make it look like my head is bigger than it really is. She's insecure. The queen is very insecure, and as well she should be, because her whole United Kingdom is falling apart. Northern Ireland is leaving. Scotland's leaving. Wales is leaving. She's going to be left with basically, a few corgi dogs in Surrey.
That's the other thing. I mean, on one side of Max's family, it's the Keisers who were taunting Caesar. On the other side is the Maxwells. the Maxwells feature in that Tudors scene in the Tudors series with Jonathan Rhys-Meyers playing Henry VIII. And at a certain point, Henry has already executed too many aristocrats, and they can't do that because of this, throughout society, the elites can only go so far before the peasants rise up. You have to keep the peasants having faith in your structure of your society, that the elite deserve to rule, that the divine right of kings. So if Henry was executing too many aristocrats who are supposedly divine, like appointed by God, and if he's just like knocking them off, like they're no big deal, that becomes a danger to him. So he had already executed too many aristocrats when the Maxwell family tried like the 15th, 20th time or whatever to overthrow Henry VIII, and they financed the peasant uprising.
Yeah, absolutely.
Up north.
Yeah.
The border Scots, they were troublesome. So there's a scene where Jonathan Rhys-Meyers has 3 lords brought in front of him, and he's like all like fuming and just trying like he just wants to kill them, right? But his advisors have told him he can't kill them because he's already killed too many aristocrats. So he's like, Lord Maxwell, what do you have to say for yourself?
Yeah, exactly. I say today what I say then and always say, bug off. It's like, people say, why do you pick on the UK all the time? You're always tweeting nasty things about England and the UK. It's because I've been doing that for hundreds and hundreds of years. Why wouldn't you tweet nasty things about the UK?
1,400 years.
Who wouldn't do that? That's my question. Who would defend that place? But speaking of Maxwell, so they're in the news, right? So when I was living in New York in the 80s,
those Maxwells.
Yeah. When I was living in New York in the 80s, Robert Maxwell was a media baron, and he owned the New York Post, and he had a big yacht, and he went back and forth from the UK to New York.
Yeah.
And he spawned Giselle Maxwell. Ghislaine Maxwell. And the thing about it is that Robert and Ghislaine are both fake Maxwells.
Yes. His name was Robert Maxwell, but it was like something totally different. Like, I don't know what it is, but he was a different name. And he changed it to Robert Maxwell because of your family, exactly from the castle. They were at Carlavarock Castle because he thought he admired the fact that they, there's a famous scene where they fought off the King of England and the Prince of Wales actually were fighting at their property in 1300. But it's a famous battle. Anyway, he changed his name to Robert Maxwell, pretending there was a Robert Maxwell or Lord Maxwell named Robert Maxwell, and he changed his name to that. So now like they're pretenders to the Maxwell clan, but they're not.
Exactly. Pretenders they are. They're meeting horrible end as they should.
Good.
Yeah.
Your voice is very attractive, Stacey. It might be this new Macintosh.
It has to be.
What do you mean?
Well, that's the only variable is that it's a new computer.
Maybe it's somebody that just happened to be like scrolling YouTube and doesn't know who we are, and they just like, who are these, young millennials here?
They just stumbled upon us and noticed you have such a melodious voice.
Yeah. So
attractive. So suave.
Rest in peace, Ghislaine Maxwell. I think there's a lot of senators and Congress people like AOC, Ted Cruz. They've expressed concern that Ghislaine Maxwell should be protected and make sure she doesn't meet an unfortunate end like Jeffrey Epstein did. And Ted Cruz said that, this is a matter of like faith in our judiciary system. But like, I can't, just at the same with Jeffrey Epstein, like everybody was openly saying he's going to commit suicide. Right. And then he did, because Epstein didn't kill himself. Right. But, they have information on very powerful people. And this is the way power works throughout history. They always work this way. They can always get away with taking people out. So it'll be interesting to see if they can get away with it so blatantly again.
Right. And they will, of course, suicide this woman. but they're gonna have to do it like the way news is buried on a Friday afternoon in hopes that nobody notices. So there's gonna have to be some like a cover event. There's gonna have to be something else to get the attention, and then it'll be like, oh, today it was announced that China did something, right? Something, and then it'll be oh, and by the way, this Maxwell woman was found dead in her cell by apparent suicide. So it's got to be do the David Copperfield misdirection thing.
I think I think they won't say it's suicide. I think they'll do murder. I think they'll get some woman in the prison to, stab her.
Oh, right. That's classic. That's classic.
And then, pay off her family or whatever. She gets paid back some other way. But, obviously I was going to say a reduced sentence. But it's kind of hard to give somebody who's just murdered somebody a reduced sentence. But they can't. I just don't think they could do suicide. I don't know. It doesn't seem right.
The thing is that the atrocities committed by American politicians on other Americans, it's a very long list. And so I don't see why it should stop now. Whether it's Epstein or going back to John F. Kennedy, of course, was such a brazen public assassination, a political hit inside America. And the list, it's a very, very long list, but so I don't think it's going to end now. I would be surprised if they went to some other a different type of ending. I can't see that ever happening.
People are impressed that you're a jock. They didn't know.
Oh, they didn't know I was a jock.
No, that's a nickname for Scottish people.
Oh yeah, I learned that when I was doing a show up there in Glasgow at the Yes Bar during event of could have been through a Brexit related event.
No. It was for the Scottish independence vote.
Scottish independence vote. Yeah, so I did 2 nights at the Yes Bar in Glasgow, and it was packed both nights. And I gave a great show, a comedy rage show.
And we actually genuinely, no lie here, we saw a Glasgow kiss.
Glaswegian kiss.
Right when we came out of the theater on the way back to our hotel after the first night, we walked out and there was a drunk guy like hassling people, and we saw somebody he hassled, boom, like smash him in the head with his forehead. Yeah. And the guy went down on the ground, just like sprawled out. Everybody walked away.
It was so authentic.
Literally, as soon as we walked out, that's what we walked into. We were like, okay.
Yeah, Glasgow is a rough town.
That's an understatement.
You learn about these things. Like I remember once I was talking to somebody about Ireland, and I mentioned Limerick, right? Yeah. And I grew up with this idea of Limerick as being a place of fairies and limericks and poetry, and it sounds so quaint. And so I go, yeah, and I heard about Limerick, and they say, oh, you mean Stab City? Like, what? Stab City? That doesn't sound very Limerick-like. Oh yeah, mate. You get stabbed there in a heartbeat.
Well, I know. And then, Max grew up in New York City when there was like 3,000 murders a year. So, it's all relative, right? Because, Limerick, is it really that dangerous? They call it Stab City, but like it'll probably turn out that there was a stabbing once 400 years ago, and they're still going.
I don't know. If you end up being called Stab City, I think I got to believe that there's a lot of people getting knifed in Limerick for some reason.
Well, tell us. My wife is from Limerick. Well, Declan Byrne. Okay, that sounds Irish.
All right, you tell us.
Declan Byrne.
Is it true? Is it Stab City, or is that some kind of urban myth? It's not true. Declan.
Girlfriend. Okay. Well, my family, I have a lot of family that comes from just outside of Limerick. There's a place called Herberttown. Herberttown.
Really?
Yeah.
I got to go there. That sounds like a good place to go. Herberttown.
Well, you won't be stabbed in Herberttown. I think there's only 4 people. 4 people or so that live in this busy metropolis. Stab City is part of the GTA 5 map.
Oh, that's Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah. South Side Chicago ain't no walk in the park.
No, we know that though.
There was once a man from Limerick.
Yeah.
So Declan Byrne. So we're going to take him as our expert just because of his name. He sounds like an expert. So he says there is some truth to it. So we've
That
settled
means there's
this.
like a huge murder right there. That's very understated of Declan. There's like 5 knifings a day, and he's like, "Well, there is some truth to this idea that people are being stabbed every day in Limerick. Absolutely, cheerio."
Well, when I first moved to London, like John Major was prime minister, and then it was like a year later that Tony Blair took over. But, as an American, and I was coming from Los Angeles where there were open gang warfare. That was like during the really bad period of warfare. And then the 92 riots. And there were like gunfights, like 5 blocks from me during the riots between the Korean shopkeepers and the rioters. But so when I came to London, I thought, oh, like, what's the worst I could do? Stab you, right? Like, it's pretty safe. But, it felt pretty safe like there. You didn't feel like you were going to get killed in a drive-by shooting. Like that was something that I always did think about in Los Angeles. Maybe not today when we go to Los Angeles, but back then in the late 80s, early 90s, there were a lot of drive-by shootings.
London is violent.
Yeah, it's more like fist fight.
Yeah, fist fights and
drunk
knife fights. Get stabbed. You get stabbed easily in London, and a lot of fights. Brawling, drunken brawls on the street are very, very common. Yeah, and you can get caught up in that and get really beat up pretty badly. And I mean, I felt definitely more dangerous in London than Paris. Paris is genuinely, at least it was 20 years ago. I mean, Paris is a city where it's like Disney World, really level of safety. That's changed a lot in the last 5 years.
Well, the terrorism,
except for the terrorism.
Yeah, that's a different situation.
But that's true in London too. They had the bombings during the Troubles, right?
Yeah, but I was there when they still had that. So I mean, it felt like that was a issue between certain people. And the IRA always called ahead and warned everybody. So,
Yeah, they kind of, I was reading about the IRA recently, and, that they invented the car bomb, right? That's like, up until then, IRA had really invented this car bomb idea that really wasn't a big feature of urban warfare. So there's that.
The U.S. invented the airplane as a weapon with the, who is that guy that blew up Cubana Airlines? They did that as a weapon.
The early fighter planes, like the machine guns mounted, going forward through the propeller. So the bullets are going in between the flow of the propeller.
Jesus, yeah.
Would you go up in something like that?
No.
I mean, you're going to shoot off your propeller, I would think. It happens often. That's a terrible design.
Well, that was one of the best.
Unless I was dreaming that. It's not true. I don't know.
Who here watch it? Blackadder. You ever seen Blackadder? Oh my God. That was like the funniest series ever. They were just too freaking funny. Rick Mail, rest in peace. He always had the best parts, like his little
Flash.
Oh my God. But that World War I season where he was like, where Blackadder and Baldric were like trying to escape having to be on the front lines. So they're like, why don't we join the Air Force? Because we could just like go up in a plane. It's gonna be fun. And Rick Mail is like, yeah, the average guy lasts 19 seconds up there. They're like, fuck this. We're going back to the front line.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it was funny stuff.
It was dangerous.
And what's his name played Blackadder? He went on to play Mr. Bean.
Yeah. What's his name?
Mr. Bean.
I can't remember his name right now. Blackadder, brilliant. We love Blackadder.
And he was great at the
Lord Flashheart.
The opening Olympic ceremony in 2012. That was a highlight when he was playing the piano during the introductory music for the movie about the marathon runners. Da 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 da. Da, 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 da,
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Da, 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 da.
Rowan Atkinson played Lord Blackadder.
Yeah.
Stephen Fry played Melchett. Hugh Laurie, yes, Hugh Laurie. Somebody's mentioning how good he was.
Yeah.
But
Well, you can get all these BBC shows now in the US. There's some streaming channel where you can get all these
really,
BBC shows.
I've watched all of those Blackadder like several times because they're so funny. But
Yeah, some BBC shows. You know that we've commented on this before. It's interesting because in America, television benefits from having a room full of writers.
yeah,
Right. So the series tend to be written like The Wire, for example.
Yeah.
It's such a brilliantly written show, and because they have a lot of writers.
Yeah.
The Hollywood style of writing is the formula that they use is this big group of writers, and whereas in the BBC and in Britain, typically they don't do that. They have one or two writers, and so you can tell the quality of the show suffers from that, typically.
But that was the thing with that. Rowan Atkinson, Stephen Fry, all those guys, they were in college together, university. I think Cambridge. They went.
Yeah,
to.
that's right. They were. Then they went to the festival,
Edinburgh.
Right, and then but that was like a slightly different.
But I think
period.
I think
it's more of a contemporary period I'm speaking of.
But we note that throughout history, you always see this like this weird eruption of creativity. The most famous, of course, being the Italian Renaissance from Florence, where somehow the right ingredients, the right people, the right political times, economic times, individuals like, say, Lorenzo Medici meets Da Vinci and Michelangelo and Botticelli, and like somehow it all comes together and erupts into like this period of crazy, insane innovation and artistic creation.
Yeah, but then again, a lot of BBC shows were invented and then came over to the US. So you have, for example, The Office was BBC. Stepford and Son was what came over from there. All in the Family was based on a BBC show. The Dragon's Den was a BBC. Then it became Shark Tank in America.
But nevertheless, those are individual shows punctured throughout decades, whereas there was a brilliant period of British comedy that did see, the Rowan Atkinson and Stephen Fry, all of the Monty Python stuff. There was like a period in the 70s, 60s, 70s, and 80s of these guys coming together and working and feeding off each other maybe and creating all this great comedy. That's the brilliant period of British comedy, just like we saw in composing, like with Mozart and Beethoven and Bach, and the Paris period of everybody coming together and creating great art. So it was a period of time that's all the ingredients were there, and then usually I think kind of their success makes it all fall apart. Like New York City, when you were living there, that was the period of like amazing creativity and music and art going on there.
Yeah.
And now it's way too freaking expensive to even have anybody come in there and be crazy enough to think these crazy ways to come up with interesting art or music.
Right. Well, that's COVID. The COVID crisis is like, you're taking the Etch-a-Sketch toy and you're shaking it and you're getting rid of everything and you're going to start again, right? This is the shaking of the Etch-a-Sketch, of the global Etch-a-Sketch toy. And on the other end of it, there's going to be a new world order, a new world really. It's going to, people who are not powerful will be powerful. People who were powerful won't be powerful. Geographic centers that were important won't be anymore. Those that will be. There's going to be a very interesting shuffling of the pack.
There was I took a course in playwriting, and the professor was John Stepling, and he said something that always stuck with me, was that we haven't had any great playwrights since Jean Genet because everybody's too middle class. Like everybody wants their pension. They don't want to be deplatformed. So there is like a mediocrity that has developed. Obviously, if you know the history, even a little bit of Jean Genet, that guy would not have cared about being deplatformed. He was deplatformed and actually thrown into a concentration camp because he didn't stop what he was doing.
Yeah, well, that's something to say for that in terms of, post-war Britain was broke. It was poor, right?
Yeah.
And the BBC was people working there just worked there because they wanted to work there. They weren't
IMF
making
bailout.
any money or anything. And so they just made do with what they had. And that's when you come up with great ideas. When you throw a lot of money at it, it's like Kevin Smith said after he made the movie Clerks. He got a studio deal to make a movie called Mallrats. And he said, more money, less funny.
Yeah. Yeah. You see it over and over in Hollywood. So I think that kind of like success breeds failure. Like the hubris, the ease of not having to struggle. But that was like, Jean Genet in his lifetime earned, actually, he was very successful as a playwright. And he gave it all away, like mostly to young male prostitutes and
as you do
and stuff. But and he would end up like getting arrested for stealing stuff.
Yeah,
because he was just like he liked being in prison because he liked prison sex.
Yeah, prison sex. Jean Genet would be like, I really miss that prison sex, so I think I'll get arrested again. And that was the basis of his genius as a playwright, which made me think of Matt Taibbi this week.
Oh yeah,
not the prison sex, but his writing is underappreciated. Because people read it and they go, I got a lot of information out of it, but they don't look at the writing itself. He should write plays. He should do 12 Angry Men. It should be 12 angry, yuppies or something, all stuck in a room. And then it's like his voice, his words, his dialogue. He's a brilliant playwright waiting to break out. I mean, he's wasting his time with these Rolling Stone or essays or wherever he is now.
He can kind of make it in like a Samuel Beckett way because there's something, bizarre about Americans. Like look at these like names of groups that just keep on changing their names. Like there's like Bugaloos or Bugaboos, something like that. Did you hear of this new right-wing group? They used to be Proud Boys. Before that, there was KKK. It's like they keep on.
They're inventing divisions.
Yeah,
they.
Well, maybe, or they're just like rebranding themselves because the last one got tainted, like when they ran over and killed somebody in Charlottesville, so they couldn't use the name anymore. Just like Al Qaeda started this. Al Qaeda, like how many freaking names have there been for? Al Qaeda became ISIS, became. I don't know, all these names that they have for these groups.
Yeah, how come Boeing can't rebrand itself, right? They're gonna try to relaunch the Boeing 737 MAX. Look, Boeing, tear a page out of Al Qaeda's book. You need to rebrand. You can't sell that anymore. That brand is dead.
Blackwater did it. Everybody still calls them Blackwater, but they're on their like third or fourth name since then. So they're always rebranding. But like I've never seen that in a play form. So
Phil Morris is Altria.
Yeah. So I think somebody like Matt Taibbi could handle this. Is like the characters by the end they've just become a different character name, but they started off with something like Al Qaeda, and by the end they're ISIS or something like that. They've gone through several iterations.
The play starts off in a cave somewhere with terrorists, right? And by the end, they're all wearing three-piece suits and trading credit default swaps.
Yeah, that's right, and they're called Jamie Dimon.
That's Jamie Dimon's gang. Jamie and the Dimons.
Yeah, but there's also. People will know this. What's the new name for the Black Panthers? The guys that were out there yesterday marching in Georgia somewhere. Did you see that? It's like we're not fucking around, like something like that.
Oh, really?
That's the name of the group. What's the name of the group? Come on, people, give it to me.
Black Panthers. That was a great brand.
Oh yeah, it was like Angela Davis, really. Like she was like.
Yeah, Angela Davis was really in your face. I mean, she was so powerful. Those speeches.
She's still out there. She was on Afshin Rattanzi's show. Oh, the Not Fucking Around Coalition. And
that's the new branding of the Black Panthers.
NFAC. We're Not Fucking Around Coalition, and it sees a bunch of black guys in masks carrying AR-15s and other.
Oh, there was a standoff, I think, with
Yeah.
other militia people.
With the Proud Boys, but they're not called Proud Boys anymore. They're
But
called
you know
something
what?
else.
It reminds me. It reminds me of that Michael Jackson video for Thriller.
Yeah.
Remember, like you got these two groups, and they start off with like they're at each other, and then they start dancing da with Thriller, Thriller. Right? I don't take it seriously. Because I came through the '60s, so I know what really street violence looks like. These guys are just wannabe Broadway dancers. This is their audition. It's like Proud Boys, you know, the musical. Come on, man, get real. This isn't real.
Well, that's the thing is like what we were saying is we're 49 years into this pyramid scheme, and the guys at the top of the pyramid, you know, speaking of symbolism and all that, you know, we could do whatever we want. They're like, sure, we'll appoint you to our board of directors or whatever. Like, we'll give you $50,000 a year to be our board of directors, or you can run that company now or whatever. Because you have to compete with China. You have to compete with all these other corporations around the world. You have to compete with Germany. Go run this company. But they have all the assets. And in the structure of the monetary system is such that you'll never, ever be able to compete your way up to that top percent. Like, maybe there's one or two of you out there who could be the next Jeff Bezos or Zuckerberg or something. But, you know, those guys came around before they've got a huge moat themselves through which you have to swim through their crocodile infested, patent and copyright cartel.
Well, they came at the internet. Remember, the internet in 1995 was considered
they were first
a novelty, a fad, and it wasn't last. And so, you know, and Amazon stock, you know, was down to like $5. It was crashed after the 2001 .com crash.
Yeah.
And people were writing it off and that it was a huge failure. And same thing with Apple. In 1998, Apple stock was trading at like $10 a share. And Michael Dell at Dell Computers advised Steve Jobs to quit the computer business because he had failed and he would never succeed.
Exactly. But those guys, at that time, Warren Buffett did not invest in any of those companies because he said he didn't understand technology, but he also only invests in those industries or companies with moats. He doesn't like competition. He doesn't like investing in any company that has too much competition. So he likes companies that are able to price predatorily, essentially. So That's why he now owns Apple. Full disclosure, we're recording on a brand new MacBook Pro 16-inch.
Yeah.
So, the products are still riding on, stuff that, Steve Jobs set in motion. But
it was the .com opened a window for a few entrepreneurs to have Rockefeller-like wealth and beyond.
Yeah.
Then Bitcoin is similar, and it's at that 1998, 1999 period where a lot of people are unsure whether it'll be something before it becomes huge. And so they're going to have a lot of Jeff Bezos, Bitcoin-type billionaires in the next 10 years.
From Bitcoin space.
Yeah.
But
because it's similar to the internet in terms of its disruption because it's disrupted money. The internet, it was hugely disruptive in many different ways, and this is very disruptive in its own way. And so a lot of people, just like the internet, in the late '90s, and then a crash in 2001, and a lot of people were like, it's over, the internet's over, and there was 2 or 3 fallow years, nothing happened. In that came Facebook, and that was called really Internet 2.0, I think was Facebook.
Facebook, Twitter, Facebook came first, but Google, that was the thing. Remember when YouTube, where we're viewing, you're viewing us at the moment.
Yeah.
I remember when they were bought by Google, because this is the problem with competing with these big companies now, is, just the sheer number of people. As soon as you become successful at that time, remember the two guys who created YouTube, the amount of material, of gigabytes of material being uploaded every second, they were paying for all that bandwidth and the storage space.
Right. Losing a lot of money.
Yeah, it was a huge money loser. But Google obviously had the billions and huge data centers and could reduce their costs significantly compared to these people, these young guys who were renting space, essentially.
Well, most of those network type phenomenon lose a lot of money.
Yeah.
For years, even Amazon was losing lots and lots and lots and lots of money until somewhat recently. And so that's how you grab market share, is by losing a lot of money.
But all those things, like, they get bought out by these big guys now. I did read a VC recently mentioning that, like, this is almost every single company now is built with the intention of selling to either Google, Facebook, or Amazon.
Yeah, I suppose that's always the case. There's always conglomeration and deconglomeration.
Yeah.
So when I was on Wall Street in the 1980s, there was a wave of conglomeration, and then there was a wave of deconglomeration. And so you have, it'll be at some point, the theory will be that these companies are too big, you can't grow them anymore. And they're like the AT&T in the 1980s split into 7 regional Bell companies.
They've already been presented with subpoenas in the past week.
So there could be a deconglomeration phase.
Google, I think it was.
Right. So they get split up into various pieces, and then everything's get deconglomerated, and then that's the way to go for a while. And then the reconglomeration begins again. It's interesting that who would have thought that a company out of the box, out of nowhere, could take on Google, Apple, Skype, and a few others, and launch Zoom and get 300 million users a month.
True.
Right? So that's just two guys.
But look how competition works. It's so awesome. Like, I haven't been to Skype in months. Okay, remember Microsoft bought Skype from when it was a brilliant product created out of the Netherlands, and then Skype proceeded to ruin it. They ruined it with user interface, like crapified it. Microsoft did. Yeah. And then they moved everything. Remember, original Skype used to be distributed and peer-to-peer, almost like how they delivered the content. Whereas Microsoft moved it all to their servers and changed the audio compression, which crapified that. So anyway, along comes Zoom, and the quality of the video and audio and the user interface are so much better that we no longer do all the first 1,300 Kaiser reports was done via Skype interviews. Now we do it almost exclusively with Zoom. But somebody just interviewed me, and they did it on Skype. And so I went to Skype, and it's the first time in 5 months. And they've basically took a whole bunch of features that Zoom is offering, like scheduling meetings and stuff like that. So they've just copied Zoom. They've ripped off Zoom, and they've made it better. Google Video, they have their own video thing that's always been crap.
Right, but my point is that if you told somebody a year ago that you're going to try to take on all these companies with the video conferencing app,
sure,
you would have said you're stupid.
Yeah,
there's no way you could ever launch something like that without it being bought out or taken over or competed out of existence. But it does happen, So this is the entrepreneur's voyage. It always starts off this way. It's always an impossible task. Nobody likes it. You're crazy. It's a waste of money. And 1 out of 100 turns out to be Zoom, or this company that just went public last week, Lemonade Insurance. Right? They're just like a new company, maybe less than 10 years old, just went public, and they totally disrupt the insurance industry. And it went public, it doubled, went from $1.5 billion, it's now worth like $4 billion. And who would have, who's going to take on the entrenched insurance oligarchs? Well, somebody's doing it, and they're succeeding at it. And that happens all the time.
Yes, we still recommend Green Wallet for BTC Wallet. And we, of course, recommend dollar cost averaging via swanbitcoin.com/Kaiser. if you go there, if you're new to Bitcoin, of course you have to be in the US to use swanbitcoin.com/Keiser. And you could just set up for dollar cost averages either daily, weekly, or monthly. The good thing about them is that you could withdraw automatically as well to a Bitcoin wallet, to say a green wallet or your Trezor wallet, hard wallet, or to your Casa. If you go to keys.casa, so you have your keys, your own private keys, and you basically manage them via Casa. So keys.casa. And it's a really, really good service. I've started using it for some of mine, and it's 3 out of 5 multi-sig. So it's fantastic service, super, super good. It's like a full service. It's a Swiss banking account for real. It's like being a client of a Swiss.
Full concierge service, white glove concierge service at Casa.
Oh yeah, and that's for, they do have actually just a 2 out of 5 multi-sig or 2 out of 3 multi-sig. The basic gold account, which is $10 a month. And I think they're doing 30 days free. So you could try it out, and maybe once you build up with your dollar cost averaging, stacking a whole bunch of sats, and then once you get over, a certain number of Bitcoin, say 5 or 10, whatever, you want to move it over to, a multi-sig, a 3 out of 5.
Mm-hmm.
But, $10 a month is worth it especially if you're, not even just for newbies, it's for everybody. But swanbitcoin.com/Keiser, Keiser. You could also use swanbitcoin.com/max if you want a dollar cost average. You could also use coinfloor.co.uk/Keiser or /max if you're in the UK and you want to buy Bitcoin through dollar cost averaging. So they take all of the stress out of it for you, that if you're emotional like myself, you don't need to worry about, oh man, I just bought $100 worth of Bitcoin and now it's gone down. I should have waited. And, they just do it every week. So you get sometimes you get more Bitcoin for your $100. Sometimes you get less. So, it removes a lot of the stress out of the situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Dollar cost averaging. Glad to see that in the Bitcoin space. It's something that on Wall Street people know about and use, and it's interesting to see some of these Wall Street ideas migrate over to Bitcoin.
It's taken a long time. It feels like a long time, but this whole space has matured so much for the average user. It's from today, it's easy to make fun of all the early Bitcoin adopters who lost all their Bitcoin. But back then it was, there was only the QT wallet that you downloaded to your laptop. And laptops, by the way, weren't as good back in like 2008 and 9 and 10. And, they blew up and melted down, and the hard drives were tiny compared to now. Like this one has a 4 terabyte hard drive. Back then, I remember getting a 20 gig one and thinking like, woohoo, this is huge.
Right.
And so, today there's lots of good user interface, lots of good Jack Mallers his Zap has this great new product with Visa, and it's it sounds like it's sort of a similar situation with Cash App, because if you use Cash App, there's very little, it's not like, Coinbase or anything where you have to upload your passport and all that stuff. Most people don't have to. It depends on how much quantity and stuff you're buying and withdrawing. But Cash App, they have that workaround, i.e. if you use your bank account, they know that in order to get that bank account, you have to have presented the bank, the federally regulated bank, with passport identification and stuff like that. So that's considered like a quick for fintech. They're able to use that and say they've had to prove their identity and to that bank to get that bank account.
Yeah. Right. So Strike, it's called Strike, the Jack Mallers app, which it just went into beta last week.
Yeah.
And the reviews are incredible. We're going to get Jack on Keiser report.
We're going to get Jack on Keiser report. So if you have any questions, let us know. we are going to be interviewing Hugh Henry. This is for Kaiser Report fans from like pre-Bitcoin days. And during that whole 2008, 2009 financial crisis, we covered Hugh Henry quite often. At that time, he was at the hedge fund Eclectica. And I think he's now retired from there, just living in the Caribbean. But he's free to comment where he couldn't as much go on television back then. But he's coming on this week. He'll be on Thursday's episode. So if you have any questions for Hugh Henry, we're really excited about him coming on.
Yeah. He's a really great thinker. He's a great hedge fund manager, great macro guy, great thinker. And he just like goes with his thoughts, right? He doesn't try to, edit himself too much. He just goes with it. And because he has confidence that he knows what he's saying, and he's got a great track record.
He's got some pretty wild COVID hair these days. Like he's living in the tropical island in the Caribbean and clearly hasn't cut his hair in a while. And it's like pretty wild. So he doesn't look like the Hugh Henry of 2008 when he was a respectable hedge fund manager.
Right. Yeah. That's right. He's gone wild. It's Hugh gone wild. So, but I'm really looking forward to hearing what he has to say, and so that should be a lot of fun. Coming up on the Kaiser Report, Hugh Henry, Jack Mahlers.
Jimmy Song.
Jimmy Song. Who else is coming up on the Kaiser
Tariq
Report?
Nasheed.
Tariq Nasheed will be airing on Tuesday. Interview. We did that interview already. That was really interesting.
Should we invest in Bitcoin or buy gold from Monnet? I do both if you can, but they're both if you can. The gold from Monnet is, you could always sell it back. I
think it's Monnet/Kaiser too.
Oh, really? No, he was supposed to set one up, but he never did.
He didn't set one up yet? Okay.
And they're nice, you could get all those charms. So those are good sizes for, if, as somebody asked at the top of the show, a civil war comes.
Yeah.
I know you could laugh and say, oh, this is conspiracy theory and like how wacky that you would say, there could be a civil war. But, there has been in the past, so there could be in the future. And who knows? Like, you can't just decide that, like, things just disappear overnight. Like, do you think Louis the 16th thought like his head was going to get chopped off, or no, they don't think their heads are going to get chopped off. Nobody expects their head to get chopped off. Yeah. Speaking of Monty Python, right?
Well, gold. Yeah, we love gold. We've talked about recommending gold since it was $400 back in 2003. Been recommending silver since it was $5 or $6 at around the same time. Started recommending Bitcoin when it was $1 in 2011. So we've been talking about those all together. Bitcoin was always gold, Bitcoin was all together. Gold is going to continue to do well. It's against every other currency in the world. It's done phenomenally well. It's done well for 100 years. It's done well for 1,000 years.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with gold. There's nothing wrong with silver. I would remind people of the comments recently from Paul Tudor Jones.
Yes.
It's another hedge fund guy, one of the best in the world. Track record goes back decades. Who said, inflation's coming. I'm investing because I believe we're going to have big inflation, and therefore I want to own the fastest horse in the race, and that's Bitcoin, right? So it's the fastest horse in the race. I mean, you can make the argument that for every dollar gold goes up, you're going to see $25 to $30 of price appreciation of Bitcoin, because Bitcoin's market cap should start to approach gold. So gold's at 9 trillion or 9 trillion. Bitcoin's at 200 billion. So it's going to start to converge. That means Bitcoin price is going to move faster than gold.
Nobody's talking about you. Everybody's talking about me.
Okay, fine. That's normal. That's the way it should be.
Well, Stacey's eyes are a conspiracy. I'm glued. Sorry, Max. No offense. You have Max hates to say he told you so, but he told you so.
I don't hate to say "told you so." I say it often.
You love saying.
I always say it. That's like, I would say I'm right 95% of the time. and things that I say.
Except for when you're talking, like when we're having a debate, because
Yeah, but
Max is
that's
always
different.
wrong.
Well, that's a gender thing. That's not a fact-based thing. That's based on a gender thing.
Well, I guess it's time to go top up my margarita. That's when we know it's time to end the show, is when my margarita is empty. Max was he only filled it like a part of the way up. It was only like that much.
Yeah, I used the same from last week. I used the same recipe.
Yeah, but remember I told you to go back and double it?
I did. I doubled it. Last week I doubled it. And this week, I prepared the cocktail per the doubled version from last week. So this is the doubled version.
Double down is also this week coming up. But so yeah, remember, go to Twitter, tweet us, and let us know if you have any questions.
This thing on people do this?
Okay, Boomer.
It's some kind of trick you do with your hands. It's pretty cool.
No, maybe that was what boomers grew up with. They didn't have memes.
We had silly putty. We had this trick with your hands. We had this trick where you make these things go together. Like that was actually on television. We had Captain Kangaroo. We had silly putty. Of course, was the first meme generator. You put the silly putty on the comic strip, then you can stretch it out. It's like silly putty.
Before I hang up,
what?
Does anybody here watching this, if you're millennial or Generation Z only, so if you're under 39 years old, do you even know what silly putty is? Is that still a thing? Tell me.
Yeah, heck yeah. What about slinkies? The slinky, da 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 da.
Oh, I love slinky. I played that for hours.
Da, da, da. It goes down the stairs.
Somebody said now they put silly putty in bread.
Really?
That's gross.
Silly putty in bread? These millennials are messed up, man.
Oh yeah, they do Tide Pods and stuff like that.
You eat Tide Pods, you put silly putty in bread. No wonder your brains are rotten. You need to when I was a kid, you just sniff glue. 15 cents, you get a little testers, glue, good for a week.
I know Slinky goes down the stairs alone or in pairs. True.
Right, alone or in pairs, the Slinky.
Somebody says his 6-year-old nephew knows about it. So
how about Winky Dink? Winky Dink and you, Winky Dink and me.
I don't think people definitely don't have Winky Dinks. But
so this was actually allowed, where you would put plastic on the TV and then you sit right in front of the TV with your eyes practically on the TV. And then Winky Dink would be in adventures, and he'd need to jump over the river or something. And he said, "Quick, draw a bridge for Winky Dink." So you take out your crayon and you're drawing on this plastic on the TV screen, and then Winky Dink goes over the bridge, right?
Somebody's pointing out that when they're Gen X and they used to eat lead paint when they were
really now they have rubella.
You're not allowed to eat lead paint.
Lead paint
anymore.
is not good for you. Don't eat silly putty. Don't eat lead paint. What's wrong with you people?
But when we were kids, yeah, there was lead paint. Like there was lead in the paint.
There was asbestos everywhere.
Yeah, and that's actually, when you think about when Max was in New York City, there were 3,000 murders a year back then, and through the 80s and into like 91, 92, and now there's only 300 a year, under 300. So the point is, some scientists suggest that it's because there's no more lead in the paint. So that it was the lead in the paint.
I remember as a kid on TV, there would be an ad, like a public service announcement, educate people about rubella. Rubella apparently is a disease.
Yeah, it's like measles.
That comes from eating lead paint, I believe. And
don't you get the measles, rubella shot?
I'm working, from 50-year-old memories here, and it could be all messed up. But we had thalidomide babies. That was a big thing back in the early 60s. Apparently, thalidomide was some kind, I don't know why people ingested it, but it was in something. And
I think they gave it to women for nausea during pregnancy.
And it caused horrible birth
defects,
right? That you don't see that that's been, I think, eradicated. What other childhood?
Sniff and glue. Max used to sniff glue.
Sniff and glue. I mean, yeah, for you get the testers. It's like 15 cents for testers glue and a brown paper bag. And it's like, why get all fancy by eating silly putty and some gourmet latte, baked bread, croissant at crumbs and things, or a cronut. You don't need a cronut. They're getting all like, let's have a cronut. It's a donut. It's a croissant. It's a cronut. Just sniff glue. You don't need a cronut, right? It gets you just as high and it's cheaper.
Okay. Well, with that,
I'm trying to help this generation. I'm a boomer. I've been there. I don't waste your money. Save your money. They say if you sniff glue and buy Bitcoin, that's how you become a billionaire. You don't waste it on cronuts and lattes.
No, the problem is, I swear to God, the problem is that it's because too many kids like you sniffed glue, and then one of them overdosed, and then nobody could have glue because one kid overdosed on glue sniffing. The same thing like when we were kids. You used to go to the shop and like bring your stuff home and open it. Like now you need a fucking pliers and some like a chainsaw and all sorts of stuff to open your goddamn products because everybody wants to kill you. Like one asshole like laced Tylenol with
the Tylenol.
The Tylenol. I remember that. Like now it's like I have products. I have a box of products that I haven't been able to open yet. Because it's too hard. It's just too hard.
Well, some of them they're boxed in China in the plastic encasing.
Yeah.
That's fused together using atomic energy. Then it ships to America already packaged in this unbreakable plastic phalanx.
Yeah.
Right. And then you need a blowtorch. You need a hammer. You need a chainsaw to like get into that box of like you're trying to get your Gumby and Pokey doll. Right? Okay, Gumby and Pokey, they're great dolls. Okay, Gumby, who's better than Gumby, right? But he's encased in solid 5 foot of plastic. You need a blowtorch and a chainsaw just to get the Gumby and Pokey. Okay, so why?
Somebody wants to know where they can get the T-shirt that says Max says sniff glue and buy Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's my message to Bitcoiners everywhere. You save money, okay? You're spending too much money on distractions and entertainment and lattes and Lambos. Lambos are stupid. Why would you buy a Lambo if Bitcoin's at 5,000 when that same Lambo at Bitcoin 100,000? It just costs you $50 million, you freaking knucklehead. Just hold on to your Bitcoin, sniff a little glue. Okay, that's fine. You get your little entertainment. Don't subscribe to Netflix. It's all the same thing over and over again. It's the same story. They're just ripping off, Grimm fairy tale another 500 times in a row. It's the same freaking story.
Somebody says sniff Bitcoin and buy glue.
Wow.
How could this guy have this name? Abel Gonzalez Jr. And he asked Max and Stacey, do you use tequila or margarita mix? Dude, anybody with the last name Gonzalez knows you do not use margarita mix. That is like, you think we don't know the source of margarita? You don't think we don't go to Mexico all the time? Mexico, and we know how to make it proper. You don't use margarita mix. I swear I will deplatform you if you ever suggest that again. I'm Karen. I'm going to call the margarita police. It's just Cointreau and tequila and some lime. Nothing else is allowed except for some salt on the rim if you want, Okay. That's important to know. So yeah, I'm sure we're telling you guys go to Casa, keys.casa, go to swanbitcoin.com/Max, go to coinfloor.co.uk/Max and sniff some glue.
Yeah. Right. It's
we're going to send this to Swan and see.
How about those magic markers? If you can't go glue, sometimes you can't get glue.
They don't make magic markers like that anymore, Max. Really? I've already tried. Yeah, no. When we were kids, the magic markers, oh my God, they got you so high. They were like,
yeah, it's like, I'm at the whiteboard now. Whoa, wow, this is the most interesting diagram I've ever written.
What did they make it with? Does anybody remember? Heroin, because it was they were so strong.
It's like a derivative of the poppy plant.
But they, I hadn't
used. Or they call it magic marker, right? Where the magic comes from sniffing it.
Magic's gone.
Well, the magic's gone now. They should call it the chump marker.
They don't have that anymore, but you could totally get super stoned on that.
Because so many glue sniffers in elementary school back in the 60s, they swapped out all that for what they call Tritex glue. It came in a little pot, and it was basically oat paste, and that was a disappointment.
How about that? Somebody pointed out the mimeograph.
Oh, that's
and you got that good ink everywhere. Like, it was so stupid, right? Because it was like everywhere.
Yeah. You get black lung though. You got to be careful. Or how about Ready Whip whipping cream? You see the people get those whippets?
Oh yeah, and breathe in.
They breathe in the whipping cream.
I used to do that when I was in high school because my friends worked at Dairy Queen, and we'd go there at the end of the night and
you get those cartridges of the gas.
And the nitrous. It was like nitrous. Yeah, it was fun. These are the innocent days. We didn't have opioids and stuff like that back then.
This is before OxyContin wiped out a whole generation.
Yeah. Nitrous and the whippets. Okay, well, with that,
these are all cheap get highs.
Yeah, now we might be deplatformed. This might be our last YouTube once somebody turns.
You can't impart the knowledge to the kids. I'm like a Socrates of sniffing glue.
The Socrates of glue sniffing. So with that, like, if this is our last ever YouTube live, then we'll find you maybe on Periscope, and then if we get deplatformed from there, we'll find somewhere else.
Do just live shows.
We might have to meet everybody in like Times Square. But I think like that's owned by Disney. You can't even be crazy in Times Square anymore. Like, what kind of Times Square is that? Like, not.
When they shut down Show World, that was the end.
That's like some wacky 70s
Show
shit.
World?
Yeah.
Hey, come on. Can we talk a little bit about Show World and Times Square? I mean,
somebody says Stacy read so many of my comments today. I'm so pleased. We're like pals now.
Billy's Topless on 6th Avenue. Okay.
Shut up. I'm going to hang out.
That's a bar. Okay?
Wrap it up.
It's gone.
Wrap it up. Say goodbye to your people.
Oh, no. Okay. I will. Bye.